Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Texas All-State Etude presentation for oboe and English horn. My name is Season Summers. Thank you for joining me. Please take a second to scan the QR code to access the practice handout I created. I'll be referencing that throughout my presentation today. And we are going to be discussing ways that you can learn the audition music easier and more efficiently. We'll be identifying musical patterns used in each etude, as well as the challenging oboe components that you should target in your practice sessions. I'm really excited to assist you on this journey, so let's get started. Etude number 1 is Ferling Etude number 24. It is in the key of F sharp minor. If you are a student that has not practiced minor scales or learned minor scales before, or maybe you've done it just a little bit, that is absolutely where you should start, is learning your F sharp minor scales. And I'll go over that a little more in depth on the next slide. We have a 3/8 time signature. So I would recommend learning this etude in 3, meaning that the 8th note is going to be what's clicking on the metronome. And you can practice it that way until you feel more comfortable and start speeding up the metronome. Once the metronome gets pretty fast, you are going to need to transition into a dotted quarter note speed. That is the recommended performance range right here, 60 to 72. What that means is that the metronome is going to be clicking on beat 1 only of every measure, but it is recommended to start learning the etude in 3. All right, things to practice. On all the etudes, you want to spend time on the scales and the arpeggios. So if you look over here, when we're doing something in a minor key, there are 3 forms of minor: natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. If you're unfamiliar, I have definitions here that you can read through. Those are also spelled out for you on the practice handout that I created. Arpeggios, you want to start with the tonic and dominant arpeggios. Tonic just means an arpeggio built off of the first scale degree. So in the key of F sharp minor, F sharp's the first note of the scale. That's what we would call the first scale degree. So that's tonic. And then if we count up to 5, that would be C sharp. That would be dominant in this key. So F sharp and C sharp is where you would start. And then I have listed all of the other arpeggios that are located in the etude on the practice handout so that you can practice those separately from when you're practicing the etude. The unique component for this etude is articulation, and in particular how it relates to rhythm. So when I was looking at the etude, I noticed that there are 9 articulation and rhythm patterns that repeat over and over again. And I have listed those on the practice handout so that you can practice those on 1 or 2 notes only. You can do different notes on different days. And that's a great way to work on style, articulation, rhythm accuracy, separately from having to worry about, are my fingers able to move from note to note at the right pace? All right, here is the etude with all of the locations of the scales highlighted. It's very important that you spend time practicing your scales, but it's equally important then to make them useful by identifying where they are in the music that you're currently learning. So I've done that for you here and highlighted those, and then also you can see that there is a list of the measure numbers depending on if you're a visual learner or other. There's also one spot where I identified that it's chromatic and not the F sharp minor scale. And here is the corresponding slide for the arpeggios. All of these arpeggios are on the practice handout, again, so that you can practice them outside of working on the etude. And then if you know where they are in the etude, you know that you can already play those measures because you've learned the patterns outside of practicing the etude. That is why we work on those fundamentals. Spots that need extra attention. So first things first, octave key and half hole movements. There's a lot of really quick, snappy half hole and thumb and side octave key movements in this etude. So if you notice that any of these measures sound kind of sloppy, my suggestion would be to practice them very slowly and pay attention to your half hole fingering, finger movements, or your thumb finger movements, or your side octave key finger movements. Some of these I've identified specifically. Measure 15 would be a thumb issue. 27 and 28 would be a half hole issue. The other places I left blank because it's a combination. I would also take time to mark in your new and alternate fingerings. So alternate fingerings are things like left F, forked E sharp. Make sure you're thinking forked E sharp and not forked F. That's very important to keep straight in your head. Left D sharp, we're going to use some in this place right here. And then the high F sharp fingering is over here on my slide. And that is above the recommended high school range. You guys normally go up to a high F only, so I know that this fingering is necessary. And I wanted to point out, it looks like I have both of the thumb octave keys colored in. What I meant is that you need one or the other. So if you only have one thumb key, that's the thumb key that you use. But if you have two, you can choose. I would recommend the upper one, which is what we call the third octave key. It's specifically there to help you get your high notes out easier. And by high, I mean high E and above. You can use that third octave key, and it should make the notes respond much quicker and feel like they just pop out of your oboe easier. Certainly you can try it both ways, and whichever way works better is totally fine. The last thing I want to mention is measures 28 to 29. Do you want to pause on the bar line, and if so, how long? So the more dramatic you want the pause to be, the more retard you want to do in measure 28. It is an option to pause there, as you'll hear in my performance, and that's a great breath opportunity. So let's listen to my recording of Ferling Etude number 24.